alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Go to the church, though.
Tawali man, what's up?
Man, can you imagine people just dump everywhere? Someone drinks water and throws the bottle wherever.
Come on, Rogers. What else do you expect people to do with an empty bottle?
Simanya now, did you know that plastics take at least 450 years to decompose?
What? That's a long time.
Exactly. Because plastics are made out of a lightweight and flexible material that doesn't decompose easily. And plastics everywhere in the environment cause plastic pollution.
What is plastic pollution now?
It is the accumulation of plastic waste in the environment, like bottles, polythene bags, straws. All of these contribute to plastic pollution.
I have been using them without knowing their effect.
Yeah, a lot of people have. Plastics are a danger to the ecosystem, both on land and in water.
So how can we overcome this problem? Is there something we can do?
Oh yes, we can reduce by minimizing the use of plastics, reuse by repurposing them, or recycle by collecting and processing them into new products.
Everyone wants to change the world, but no one wants to change themselves for the world.
How about we change our habits for the world?
And it starts with me and you.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk. The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
A very, very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to today's edition of the Hotline Show. My name is Rogers Toyawa, and in studio I'm with two gentlemen who are very knowledgeable about the issues that we're going to be looking at today. Now, as you know, the number of issues that have been happening, especially throughout the last whole week, the politics, the political parties, the scuffle that was in the FDC, of course, it's not concluded up to now. We want to look at that and what it means for the whole opposition as one, but also for FDC as one of the strongest political parties, arguably the strongest political party, opposition political party in Uganda right now. So we want to look deeply into that. One of the people that we have is a journalist, and I believe he has covered extensively a number of issues that are political, and he's going to be giving us a perspective that is from that regard. And of course, the other is our Honorable Ochieno Joseph, who has been with us every single Monday, and he's going to be shedding a light from that. Of course, coming from the UPC and giving background and perspective from the UPC, where they were, where we are right now, and what he thinks is a better way to go after now. So that is where we are. So I welcome you. Thank you so much for joining us. You can find us on the Alternative Uganda Facebook handle. You can also find us on Digitalk TV Facebook page. It's both on Facebook and then the Alternative Uganda on YouTube and the Alternative Uganda on Twitter. So you can follow the conversation, make it a point to throw in a comment. You can ask a question. We'll be able to clarify in the second hour any of those queries that you'll have. So I'm going to invite my guests for the day to introduce themselves. Becca is his first time today, so I'm going to ask him to tell us a little bit about who he is and then say hello to viewers.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, people of Uganda and the world, wherever you're watching from. I am happy to be here. My first time to be here. I met Arnold the other day and I told him, but you've been in this business for quite some time. But I have not featured on the digital, on Digitalk. And he said, okay, I will invite you for Monday. So I want to thank him and to you who is hosting me today. My name is Batte Lule. I'm a journalist. I've done this job for quite some time. 12 years? I currently work with Uganda Radio Network, but I'm also a PhD student doing political studies, doing an interdisciplinary PhD in political studies and economics at Makerere Institute of Social Research. That's all. I think that is pretty much. Yes.
We can work with that for
yeah.
now. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. It's interesting that you have a political background that you are pursuing, and that obviously gives perspective to a lot of things, and we can't wait to have your opinion on a number of issues. Good evening, sir. How was your week? How is the OPC now?
It's been a mixed and heavy weekend. I did what I normally do. I was privileged to have met a young lawyer amongst the very many lawyers who are joining Uganda People's Congress in droves, and to say that a young lady as such. But early in the weekend, I was on television like this when the former member of parliament for this area, Hussein Chanjo, passed on, and the breaking news came on the studios. Hussein was a net contributor to the democratic process in this country, political process in the country, and was substantially respected in Makindye. I know particular individuals with whom we had conversations about him, in passing while he was indisposed, and of course people were missing him as we were having conversations about political mess in this country, and we talk about who's who of politics in Uganda. But beyond that, I'm delighted to be here with a young, sharp a journalist who's opted to do scholarly work, PhD in political science, amongst all, in politics, as it were, because part of the biggest challenge is that we have people who go into politics for pocket change, and we have people, include some scholars who are very emotive scholars rather than studied guys of scholarship who are able to have opportunities to enable Ugandans in programs like yourselves to help some of us interrogate political issues so that we support not only this program but young Ugandans emerging. So you've got a huge burden with you, and I'll be a party, and I hope that I'll have a conversation with you in one of your subsections of some of your papers.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us this evening. I'll begin with our guest for the day.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because at least the two of us have been here
Yeah,
for some
yes.
time. Becca, is it okay to call you Becca?
Please.
All right. So, Becca, how do you see the current developments in the political parties in Uganda? We have the Forum for Democratic Change, and the things that were happening around throughout the whole of last week. How do you see that as a person who's studying politics? Just generally, how do you look at that?
First of all, I want to join my colleague here to commiserate with the people of Makindye West for having lost Hadi Chanja. I knew him personally, and I used to visit him a couple of times, and I'm not from Makindye, but like many Ugandans, he really impacted the lives of many. a person who has been out of parliament for 7 years, but his desk is interrupts normal programming for breaking news.
Yeah.
Yet there are members of parliament, sitting members of parliament, whose desk doesn't attract anything. No one can interrupt their normal programming to announce their desk. So it tells you how phenomenal Haji Chanjo has been, and also the fact that he died in the circumstances that he died also makes me, it brings a heavy heart to me, because what happened to the use of the heads? Because if you defeat me in the head, come on, because Chanjo had never picked up any arms to fight the government or to fight anybody, who would use the mouse like I'm using. So somebody, because of the kind of disease that he suffered, dystonia, he was told that there are only 3 ways you can get that. Trauma, like when you have had an accident, something like that, or when it is hereditary, or when you've been poisoned. And he said he ruled out the other 2 options. So the only possibility was that he was poisoned. So in his passing, it shows the nature of politics in which we are involved, where if someone cannot defeat you intellectually, they resort to underhand methods. And in his passing, especially at the time of the turmoil in the Forum for Democratic Change, and it feeds into what people were talking about him. He's the definition of decency. Imam Kasos was telling us, and actually also Asman the MP for municipality, was saying that when he was sick and he had left Parliament, because when he was still a member of Parliament, Parliament would foot his medical bills. But after he had left Parliament, so that opportunity, that window closed. So they proposed to go talk to the president. He refused. Said, there's no way I can spend the entire my adult life fighting abuse of public resources for personal benefit of people close to the president, and the same is used on me. Said, because after all, I'm going to die. It doesn't matter. This disease came, is not going to leave me. I'm going to die. So I would rather die in dignity than do the same things that I have been advocating against. So that is phenomenal. People will do anything under the sun to survive, to have a life, to live tomorrow. But he said, if I die, I die. Like we normally say in our Kamocha language, I die, I die. So, so it shows you the nature of the man Chanjo has been. But having said that, last week, we saw a section of members of the FDC at Nsambia, close here. And the thing was that their party president and the party secretary general pocketed money, billions of shillings from the president.
Allegedly, for now.
You can use that. Because, for me, when someone says that our president gave them money, I wouldn't even add allegedly, because I've seen him give money in everyone you hear, I want to see the president. What do they want to see him for? But the president himself, when he was at Kololo, I think during the swearing in of the Honorable Olanya, he said, I am working well with DP. He was particular. I am working well with the UPC. I'm working well with FDC. The only people who are still disturbing me are NUP. That's what he said. Now, you who is hosting this program, Hotline, when you tell me I have a relationship, we're speaking in terms of the program you host, what kind of relationship do you have with me? It is a relationship that refers to what you are offering. The president has 2 things he offers. He has money and he has power. For the DP, he has given them power because the President General is the minister in his government. For the UPC, the wife to the president is a minister in his government. For what has he given the FDC? Because Joyce Sebugao left. Therefore, she is no longer FDC. But if he says, I am working with FDC, it shows that, what does he have? He hasn't given them any positions, we know. So what has he given them? So if they say that they have given, and you see, the people who are making this, I asked a friend, why would say Dr. Wesley come out and say, my party secretary general and the president were given money? What purpose does it serve for him? Why would more than half of your party leadership come out and say that our party president and secretary general were given money whose source we don't know? Oh no, they said the source. And the secretary general is put on spot to ask him, where did you get the money? He said, no, I can't say. It wants to, the person who gave me the money wants to be anonymous. He admits that he got the money.
Yeah, he doesn't refuse.
He doesn't refuse that he got the money. But they ask him, how much did you get? He doesn't reveal. How much did you, who gave you the money? He doesn't say. So we can put any answers we want, because in this country we know who gives money. So you can fill in the missing gaps. For me, I have decided to fill in the missing gap by saying, agreeing with those who are saying that it is someone who gave them the money. But I think the biggest trouble for our country is that Museveni, I don't know why he doesn't want people who oppose him formally.
I think is it him alone or any other leader would try as much as possible to thwart, if I should put it that way, any form of opposition or anyone who's striving to move him out of power.
But do they do the same as our president does?
They may not.
Because you are not seeking, because you see, and the opposition, a government is as good as its opposition. Because there are so many things we can achieve. Oh, by the way, when you look at constituencies that are represented by the opposition, they're actually better looked after than those which are represented by the NRM. In Kampala here, when you go in Wakiso, in many districts which are represented by NRA, I mean by the opposition, the government puts there a lot of focus, more than it puts in its own constituencies. So it tells you that the opposition is important for any government. A government which doesn't have, there are many things that happen in this country. If there was no one watching, probably they would have been done differently. So sometimes that's why this media organization, one of the things it does is to advocate for a better Uganda. Because in a country where the opposition is lame or it is not working, the media becomes the opposition. Yeah. Because if there were institutions that work, if there were, if really the opposition was up to the task, why would we open a media organization like this? So it shows that really the people because governments in themselves, sometimes they are obstinate. They have to be every time reminded of their responsibilities. And the person who does remind them of their responsibility, naturally it should be the opposition. So we should always, all the time, have the opposition. But the president, in 2021, he said, in 2006, he said, by 2021, there will not be opposition in Uganda. And that's why, when you look at his government, and by the way, when you talk to NRM people, you see, the president actually, they are very bitter. Because the opposition eats more than the government people do eat. The president, my friend, my MP actually also for Kira municipality, Ibrahim Samunju, one time said that Museveni is like a taxi driver. When you are in Uganda, the driver goes, nyabogenda. So when you sit in, and he's saying, tugenda kati. When you tell him to go, so you are important before you board the taxi. But when you board your importance, then you will go and pick another who is like a kilometer away from where he is. So the NRM people are crying because look, the speaker was FDC, his deputy was FDC. Even the former speaker who died also was UPC. You know, many people who are in his government who are previously people who belong to the opposition, but they are NRM people who believe in the NRM ideology, but he doesn't bring them because for him, his interest is really not to, but he doesn't believe, that's why he calls them names, obscurantists, negative forces. He has never appreciated the role of the opposition. That's why for 10 years he kept us in the movement. It was running as a political party, but pretending that it is a movement system where all of us belong. But for actually more than 20 years, more than 10 years. Because from 1986 up to 2005, Uganda was one party state. This guy is under the movement system because our president doesn't believe that there must be alternatives. He's a Marxist. He doesn't believe this.
There cannot be more.
No.
Be diverse.
So many of those problems, I think, are as a result of the man who sits in the State House, because he doesn't believe there is anybody who should do. Museveni believes, by the way, the last thing, that he's doing us a favor for being president. So, but because he believes that he's doing us a favor by being president, he looks at these ones, these Josephs in the opposition, as ungrateful people. He looks at them as ungrateful. That's why he will do everything to bring them, for them to see the right path. I read the letter he wrote from Mao. He said, for the first time in Uganda, 1,000 years, you have seen the light. So the light means NRM.
Ochieno, I wanted to give your analysis of how you saw the events unfold last week, and what do you think the implications are for you, of course, being a player from the opposition and one who specifically aspires to lead one of the opposition political parties, and even not assume, because you'll get, let's be faithful. If you do, how do you think you're going to be playing in these kind of spaces, in this kind of environment, in this kind of situation, where even the opposition cannot be entirely trusted right now?
Yeah, I was telling somebody today, actually, that we are relatively lucky in UPC because we are the established political party, and we are an established political party, and we are the establishment political party, and we are a coherent political party, ideologically rooted, historically rooted, values and everything intact. The problem is that while Museveni attempted to kill us, he sank us on the darts under River Nile. And so now we are as much a mess of another junk below the next fish in the waters. So we are as dirty as any other generally. But in the event, and it must happen, that we pull ourselves off and put ourselves on the table, we cleanse ourselves, we shall be the glittering gold. So in terms of where all other political parties are, I'm still quite confident that after that, then we shall hit the ground running. We've got systems, we've got values, we've got networks and everything else. We've just been strangled. We're strangled by NRA and DP in 1985, NRA and DP in 1986, and from then on, NRA and all their supporters, including dubious foreign interests that Mr. Museveni serves. So we suffered, as indeed, as Edgar said, for 20 years, while we're fighting to reclaim this space. So what am I saying? I'm saying that institutionally, structurally, we should start from somewhere where most of our other colleagues, and particularly the younger, our friends in NUP, for instance, and the younger friends in maybe ANT, younger friends, I think Asati was the Secretary General of another political organization, people will concede to you that they're still trying to find ways by which possibly even to organize what is right for a branch meeting, what is right for a delegates conference, and what lessons they can learn from other political parties. And so sometimes I sympathize with them because they'll have to learn those lessons. Some of their younger members have to learn from somewhere. I still struggle with some of my own young guys I have in UPC because they don't have any other experiences elsewhere. So even some of the own leadership have no clue about how to navigate some of these challenges. And particularly that against a very hostile environment that Edgar is talking about, and against a very hostile space in which the NRA had deliberately set it in a manner in which it would be a monolithic polity until cows come home via Tripoli, Libya with Comrade Gaddafi. So to that end, we're okay. Problem is, I said, Museveni, very conveniently, in a very beautiful way, corners certain individuals in UPC who meet his criteria with a kiss by force. So he gets Batte Baker, kiss by force. Gets Jim McKenna, kiss by force. Jim McKenna, unfortunately, Edgar, Jim is not president of Uganda People's Congress, and Jim McKenna is occupying the Uganda House by force. Jimmy being Dr. Botte's son and a friend of mine, a colleague of mine actually, and a brother, it means that his name more than anybody else makes it slightly difficult. And because he managed to occupy Uganda House, very confusing for UPC members, and very, very hard thing for many UPC members, and most other Ugandans quite confused, not knowing what to do. So from that point of view, we need to deal with the situation with there's Botte's son, who claims the leadership of the party, and because of what his son, he's genuinely liked and much more known by most other average Ugandans and members of UPC. He's a member of parliament. His wife is a member of parliament. So therefore, they're relatively above average social class people, and from an area which is predominantly UPC. That is the complication. And then next to that, he occupies Uganda House, which is the best, the known home of Uganda People's Congress. And everyone else will ask, if he's not leader, why is he there? You ask the silent guy, Peter Walubiri, who's absolutely responsible for the mess we are up to this today, who court gives him permission to organize fresh elections, I defeat him. He decides to play Museveni's game by not letting go, holds it, and so now is taking it out to some under the desk of his chambers. I don't know where he is in the last 2.5 years. I think maybe I'll contact my good brother Okotho Chola, and then we send 9999. Walubiri wanted here. Quickly come on, you claim to be leader of Uganda People's Congress since 28th of December 2020. So that's the mess. Away from that, at any time, Edgar, that we have a mandated president of Uganda People's Congress sitting at the national headquarters, you will not see most of these things. Because traditionally, it's a bit unfortunate, because we're Ugandans who've been in this place. We should have less of these contradictions, because some of these contradictions are ideological. Some of them are strategic. I was telling another network the other day, when I see some of the things that, when I see some of the things that are happening in FDC, some of the issues, I headed the UPC External Bureau for a long time, and I administered before formally being its head. I was a branch chairman, a constituency chairman, a senior member of the local government executive equivalent of Kampala City Council of my local authority in the Labour Party. I just can't understand how money comes into a political party organization, and some people know, others don't know, but the core team of either national executive or central executive, in this case, there's a chairman, the secretary treasurer, and in this case, secretary general. I just can't get it. I don't see that happening in an established political party with a clear sense of leadership, clear sense of membership, clear constitutional programs, and above all, rules of the games and the culture. It doesn't. Part of what is happening is because Museveni killed political parties for 20 years, people are just waking up to learn many of these things. It is extremely unfortunate. That said, I would want to say that I have said several times that in the event that possibly Dr. Kizza Besigye had, after falling out with Mr. Museveni in 1999-2000, elected to join the re-established political parties at the time, which are the UPC and DP, and I understand maybe UPC was a difficult for him. Suppose he joined DP, which would have been possibly convenient with himself as part of his family. We would possibly be in a different space today, and I think you're referring earlier to my column on yesterday's paper, Sunday column.
Sorry, a little bit.
Yes.
Him joining, let's assume that he had joined any one of those.
Indeed.
And that's to make any situation any
yes,
different.
and that's precisely.
Okay.
I'm telling you because I argued yesterday that we've had profilation of political parties when what is actually required is different. Mr. Museveni killed institutions, killed political parties, killed systems, and with it emerged personal merit polity about me, myself, and I, and politics of money and materialism. Hence, now you see people who go into politics and to seek pocket change, to seek money, So there's now material politics rather than values-based, ideologically driven politics. That's why I'm trying to tell you that in UPC we have people who are dining with Mr. Museveni because of money. We know. But it's not the predominant and not the panacea thing. It's not the norm in the political party because we are driven by values and ideology. I'm not saying that we're any special, but I'm trying to tell you we have some of our people. Relatively, Edgar, the future of this country post-NRA and the future of this country challenges facing us today is very urgently to get selfless leaders, men and women, young men and young women, who, like our founding parents, focused on the realities and the challenges, focused particularly on the future, and drew up a program to move towards that, meaning building for the future. In as long as we continue, that even today, people look at Ochieno and say, oh, he's good, but he doesn't have money because he's not glitter, the other thing that Mbaba was a glitter, that he was a multimillionaire, people ran to him, turns out there's nothing, kind of stuff. You know, as long as it's that, we will go round and round. But as I said, this is a direct creation of Mr. Museveni, killing institutions, killing systems. Political parties driven by ideologies means that politicians emerge. I'm a politician. We have most in Uganda people who are in politics using politics, but not politicians. Politicians will be people who are driven by values and convictions that they believe in, by those values that they believe should be the worldview of society, by belief, therefore, that if the majority they're able to persuade a critical number, usually the majority of the population that follow them, that they get opportunity to have leadership, meaning power, whether in local government or central government, that they will translate those values into practice to serve. And so Milton Obote and the UPC, we serve, we deliver. And that, if you look from independence, you see, every other time we're in government, you will see that we delivered for the people, driven by sets of our values. And when we had conversations, if we're having conversations with a right-leaning political party, say arguably DP, we would be talking about what the right wing perhaps believes. We talk about possibly taxation. We believe about private health care. I've told you that, by the way, young Ugandans, don't get swayed by this nonsense about private health care. What do they call it? Health insurance nonsense. Health insurance nonsense is excess capitalism. I'm surprising you. Officially from Uganda People's Congress, and by the way, this is breaking news, if only it could be breaking news on the headline tomorrow. I do not believe in private, what do we call it? Private health, private health scheme. What do they call it? This thing for health insurance. Health insurance is excess marketization. Health insurance is selling our lives for cheap. Health insurance is putting your life at a value. The UPC way, the social democratic way, the democratic left-leaning way, that even the British Conservative Party, although they want to privatize public health, free at the point of delivery, delivered and offered through public taxation. You know, I'm talking political ideology. You get what I'm saying? Yes. Let me just sit in 30 seconds. So if you talk like that, you talk ideologies. That is what we do from the leftist point of view. So what are we saying? There is efficiency, there are systems. You go to hospital, you know, the money has come from public coffers somewhere, you know. Edgar, as an average journalist, if he's lucky enough, he earns 2 million Uganda shillings. He has already paid his taxes. Edgar does not have to bother an iota that he's going to pay for a doctor. He's not going to pay for a nurse. He's going to pay for an ambulance to come and pick him up, unless Edgar chooses to be posh enough to go to a private hospital somewhere in Rwakatura. You see what I'm saying? But Edgar will go to Mulago, Edgar will go to Chira, wherever his home is. As I said, you know, he's close to my good friend, Ibrahim Ganda. That is ideological politics. We build schools. We build public schools, and they're tip-top. We build roads, and they're tip-top. We enhance agriculture. The other day I was talking about John Babiha, my vice president and minister for agriculture. You know, and we're having conversations.
The last vice president we've ever had.
Yeah?
When you said the only vice president you ever had.
The last one was Paul Mwanga, granted. But in a way, yes. Since Mwanga and Babiha, who else? You know, they're assistants to Mr. Museveni, aren't they? So when you look at it from that perspective, you see the challenges facing us. So to qualify the point about Besigye, I'm saying this is what Museveni killed. So by the time the Besiges were coming, they sort of played in his hands by forming things their way. If he had returned to, say, DP, we would be having two political parties with the relative conscious ideological rootings. The majority of the people would have rallied around possibly DP. I'm sure that by maybe the year 2001 or maybe 2005 or 2006, DP and UPC as traditional political parties would have been reclaiming back their peoples from the mess that Museveni had claimed all their tribalistic and all this kind of nonsense. By and large, DPs from the Catholic background, yes, but beyond that, religious political parties exist around the world, and indeed, tribal political parties exist. We don't call them identity political parties. Scottish Nationalist Party started as a Scottish National Party that believed in Scottish independence. Now they're nil about again, but they're in Westminster. So that really is what's happening. And Edgar, I'm glad that I'm here with you and studying, and a PhD. These are the conversations we need to have at this level. The more we have this, the more we have critical citizenry, the more, and I hope we shall have better legislators, better people in politics, better youth activists in universities, and less these subgrade guys who go into politics to go and collect money from State House. Those monies that people pick from Mr. Museveni, the money that you pick from Mr. Museveni is your money. I actually find it really, really sad that there are people with the brains, including people who are associated with UPC, go and allow themselves to get compromised by Mr. Museveni because Museveni has given them money, public money, their money, and they say, yes, sir. In other words, even in the unlikely event, Rogers, that you get money from State House to take you for emergency treatment in Nairobi, you should say, thank you, sir. But it's not money that has come from Museveni's grandfather or from Nairobi, has it?
It's from the people.
It's public money. And if he's done it as the president, meaning ruler of the Republic of Uganda, which has had excess privilege for 40 years, it has never had the mandate, he should be thanking Ugandans that has got an opportunity. I
want to ask you about a thing from the letter you wrote, the one you put in the Daily Monitor. You said, and I quote, when the ban on parties was nullified in 2004, I skipped a few things, political parties were now only vehicles for pocket change, lucrative parliament, and other elective offices. There, in other words, were you trying to say that democracy was dead before it was even...
Democracy had now, Museveni had now killed the concept, as Edgar was talking about, of democratic polity.
So was it now a better option to have multi-parties remaining?
No. And that's my point, and that's why I bring in Kizza Besigye. Meaning that from 1985-86 particularly, Museveni presented political parties as bad, and they perfected the art. By 1996, when my elder Semogero was standing on individual merit, it was almost now close to this thing, individual merit thing, and then money. I am saying that from the time of the ban on political parties being lifted, we needed to have returned to mainstream traditional political parties. And key important political leaders that matter, in my opinion, should have returned to their political parties and to the political parties of their fathers and mothers, unless they had very specific, special ideological programs for Uganda or ideological conflicts. So I would ask, for example, Kizza Besigye, and what was contradictory for Kizza Besigye in 1999 not to join DP, for which maybe he could have been comfortable in 1980. What political party was he in 1980? Why didn't they rejoin, say, reform UPM? I am saying this, and I know sometimes some of my colleagues in the opposition will find this a bit discomforting, but these are conversations we must have. I am trying to say these things that we're talking about are symptoms of a mess that we created. Now you see political parties, as I told you at the beginning, we have political parties being formed, but you find leaders of political parties trying to learn, what does UPC say on the constitution or how you have meetings? Go around the world. And there's this thing that I need to say to conclude. There is this thing that Museveni sells, just like he tells young people, the politics of fear. They don't know that that's the devil. Now, on political parties, UPC and DP, they know, those are old political parties. Those are old. We've moved on. When did hospitals move?
They did not.
When did schools move? No, get it. When did hospitals move? When did schools move? When did roads move? When did jobs move? When did cost of corruption move? When did thievery move? You see what I'm saying? I'm telling you that I grew up in the 70s, in primary school in the 70s. My uncle used to leave the door open. There were no thieves in Agongera. There were no thieves. In Agongera, in my primary school, including in Mwiri, in my secondary school, you be known that you stole a pen. Not only will you be expelled, but in Agongera, if you're known that you had that you stole a pencil, you've meant that your sisters will never get married. Nobody's coming to get married from your family. Just like if you get dubious, no, you'll never get married you never get married. Even in Bushenyi, our place, you not get married in Bushenyi. That are from Agongera and they stole a pen. So these are cultural things. My point is, we needed to do those things and reclaim. No, political ideals, political values don't die. You reform, you might simply say that, okay, we believed in higher taxes, a particular level. We believed in 40%, maybe 30% now. We believed in public services, but we can now say that maybe we might have because this is arguable, we might have a profit element, meaning that market element that maybe in hospitals, we can agree that maybe we outsource catering, something like that. That is arguably possible. You outsource catering so that you're allowing for efficiency. But right now, the conversation in Britain, the most popular conversation in Britain, good enough you're a PhD student, the biggest, best conversation in Britain, is when you say you want to claim back what this right-wing Margaret Thatcher, these ones who are friends of apartheid, who brought in Idi Amin in this country, did. They privatized public utilities, okay? So now the most popular thing in Britain is claiming back public transport, railways, buses, airlines, post office, water, gas, electricity, back into public services. Now, so if this is the new thing, and Museveni and his funny guys who eat our thieving money claim, all the political parties, no, they're telling you a lie. UPC is now more fantastic, necessary gold today than at any time. In others, UPC and its values today is more relevant than when the Ignatius Musazis were founding it in 1952.
I'm going to come back to that because I want to get a perspective about the opposition, especially those that are old, as they say, and if they are doing the best as they did back in the day, compared to...
Oh, no, certainly not, but
I'll come to that.
Yeah.
I wanted to get the perspective from Batte, Mr. Batte. When you see the opposition as it is right now, first of all, even the FDC, do you feel like we have the whole story?
Of course, we can never have the entire story because the people who are giving information, they don't want, they still want the party, because when you say everything, you might end up scattering the entire party. So, and those ones who are also being accused are also not telling us the entire truth. So you are being fed on snippets, but I don't know whether the entire story will ever be known.
So until then, we can only act in speculation.
Yes, but I think for me, Joseph here makes a good submission. But I think his first challenge should be, before you come to us Ugandans who are not around. The only thing we know about UPC is the crises that before this country, 66, and also the stealing of the election, although we can examine that because every time Museveni's vote has been subjected to scrutiny, it has been found wanting by courts of law. But I think the first thing to do is for you to go back to your house and organize it, because apparently you are dealing with Jim McKenna, who court has said that he's holding that the delegates conference in which he was elected was not there legally. Therefore, he overturned his election as president of the UPC. But you're also you've said you are dealing with also Aluviri. So there are three people contesting the UPC. Yes. So it becomes hard for you to come and tell us. We will ask which UPC, because now it happens that it looks like the UPC people know is the one which is married to the NRM of Yoweri Museveni. We saw the other day when the Honorable Dr. Apio, yes. She won in Oyam. The president said that, you see, he was not bitter. He said, after all, it is our allies who have won. So when you come to tell a Ugandan who is a Ugandan like me that we really need the UPC, I will ask you which UPC, because the UPC I know is in bed with the NRM, and the president is there telling us of how they are working very closely.
How nice they are.
How nice they are. So I don't want you to be walking me to NRM. So I think the first thing is for us to first figure out, put our houses in order. Then we can appeal to the larger Ugandans.
That's true, yes.
And I'll ask you the same question I thought you would also answer. Do you feel like the traditional parties, the DP and the UPC, are still doing as much as they used to, even compared to those that came after?
No,
Or
it
did they
follows.
get complacent at some point after?
It follows because, like I said earlier, you have a man who doesn't believe in political parties. He believes in obliterating political parties. He doesn't believe because the president, after being defeated in 2000, I mean in 1986, his party got only one candidate, one MP.
1980. Yeah.
And that one MP was as a result of the killing of the substantive MP for DP, towards the election. That's how Kiyonga was elected minister. Was elected member of parliament.
Yeah.
Museveni himself was defeated by his now, because their children now married.
Darling Muko.
Yes, his children marry. They both marry cousins. Janet Museveni and Jennifer Kutesa were cousins, first cousins. So Museveni and Kutesa married cousins, but their children also got married. So, but the point I'm making is that Museveni was defeated by Sam Kutesa also. So, but 1980, the person who had been rejected in 1980, how come in 1986 he becomes the darling of, where did the people, you think the register had been changed so much, or the people, the composition of the country had changed so much now that the particular people were there now are his darling. So it tells you that Museveni hated politics because, hated political parties because he had been humiliated. So the first thing he did was to ban these political parties, not really because, like he says, they are divisive. Because one of the problems, my biggest problem with our president is that he preaches wine and takes water.
Water and takes wine.
And takes wine, either way. Because he will come and preach against sectarianism. He will come and preach against tribalism. He will come and preach against corruption. But he does those same things in extra. We are in a country where the president's wife is a minister, his children are special advisors, his son is the de facto vice president. He's been talking about Mwanga. But we have a de facto vice president in the names of Salim Saleh. That's why even when they appointed the vice president and the prime minister, the first thing they did was to go to a pilgrimage to Gulu, to the real vice president. You see the vice president going to another part, who holds no official duty, official office in Uganda. But all of them had to make the pilgrimage to Guru to go and thank the actual vice president. We have the minister for education. I was at a function at Makerere where she sent the vice president to represent her. In the pecking order of Uganda, the vice president is the second in command. But the minister for education sent the vice president to represent her at a function at Makerere. And she said, I'm only here to represent the minister for education. I'm going to read her statement. She only read that, she didn't comment. Now the person she's sending is the vice president, who should be sending the minister. So it shows you who are the real owners of this country. So, but the president will preach to you sectarianism, nepotism, all these damn things, yet he does the very things he's preaching against. So, but where I was coming from, he will tell you that political parties are divisive. That the reason we are putting them in limbo is because they are divisive. Our people had been, he tells them now, the all you had in Uwero was because of the UPC, was because of the DP. So therefore we suspend political parties. We suspended them for, I think, 20 years, from 86 to 2005. Yeah. 20 years, damn years, they were in a base. But not, for him, his own political party was running as a political party. He told us that when you read the Constitution, he says there is a movement system. And it was a system where all of us were. You know, you would only stand on individual merit. Last week I had a phone opponent say, but the movement system, the movement secretariat had its own candidate. But we are in a movement system where all of us are members. But they also had even a caucus, which, you know, Gilbert of Kenya was the caucus, the chairperson of the NRM caucus. So Museveni abolished political parties. because the sole reason he abolished them because he knew these parties were still strong. They had roots. One would ask, why is the UPC still there? Why is it not dying? ODP, amidst the turmoil, you get, amidst all this brouhaha happening in these political parties, they managed to return a member of parliament. 2, 3, 4. You see, amidst all this turmoil, and amidst the president working his head off to kill them, they are still there. But I am only disappointed that some of the people, because you see, at the end of the day, Ugandans are looking at who is offering alternatives. Mm-hmm. So DP is telling you, I saw Mao the other day saying, by DP joining NRM, Uganda was a gas pressure cooker. It was about to explode. No, but when DP joined I went, oh my God. So because Mao you have joined, so there is less pressure within Uganda, so you are Uganda. Half of his members are in Kampala here at Christ the King praying because they think they were driven to a marriage that they never consented to. And he's there saying that by appointing DP to be part of the NRM, there was less pressure in Uganda, that Uganda was on. UPC, the same thing. I saw Jim McKenna and Tango Doi quarreling. So I was like, why are they even quarreling? Because UPC now, at least his version of UPC, are one and the same. So at the end of the day...
But it spare us. You yourself said that Jim is not present. Just talk about Jim as an individual. The only burden is that actually he holds. So he basically is like a boil on us. But it's not representative of UPC. But carry on.
Yes.
You know, so, just to clarify.
Yeah. So it becomes confusing. But maybe
it's difficult. You're right. It's very confusing. Yes.
Maybe lastly, I think, and Ugandans have learned one thing, two things. Ugandans, whenever there is M7, the option is who is the most suited candidate. It is always a referendum. In a referendum, there are normally two questions: yes or no. So not that the people hate Patrick Amuriat and they wouldn't vote for him, no, but they believe in the circumstances, who is the most suited candidate to take out this particular person. But also, I think the last point I want to make is about these parties. A friend of mine one time asked, what is it that M7 will be remembered for? What can you, if they ask you, after he's finished being president, how would you remember him? What would you point at and say, he did this? What is his best, what is his point of strength? The UPC would tell you, they still, up to now, they were in government for 10 years. I 10 something years, 12, 13 years.
About 12, yes.
But there are things they still point at, you say, this is the thing, this is the thing, this is the thing. Tell me, where do you point for the 40 years of M7? Where do you point at and say, this is how M7 will be remembered? I'm a student at Makerere. Every time I pass through that university, I look at the correction, the summation of what Uganda's problem is. You are at a hall of residence like Nsuvira, or even Rumumba, or Mary Stewart. You look at the buildings which were built in the 60s by the Swines. He has not even painted them in his last 40 years. You look at a hall of residence like Mary Stewart. It is about to fall on students. Not even a paint. Sewage is leaking. You look at a building, a sprawling building like in Sivira. It was built when the entire Uganda was taking how many students? 2,000 to school. Now, we have to, with the population, because by the time M7 came here, the population of Uganda was 14 million people. Yeah. Now we are 45. He hasn't built any extra hall of residence. Even those ones he found, he has not even painted them. So when I ask, where is his point of strength? Is it education? Is it health? Go at Kirudu is not very far from here. The last time I checked, sewage was flowing from the hospital to the communities. Mulago there, he hasn't built any hospital to the state of Mulago. He has tried to build Kawempe. You go there and see. One time they showed children, infants, in plastic chairs. Did you see them? Plastic chairs. The hospital has no beds. In plastic chairs, they deliver baby and they are put on in the nursery on plastic chairs. Go to Chirudu. A brother of mine got an accident and was taken to Mulago. He left the following day for two reasons. First of all, it is crowded. Man on man, woman on woman. But what was more interesting for me, and I keep on saying this, we buy the medicine on which is going to be used on him. We also bought this, the most interesting and most hurting, the cotton and the plaster that they put where they have removed the cannula. We paid for it. So I asked myself, is this a hospital? What is it? So why would anyone come here now? So point to me to any sector you would say, this one is clear. You tell me security. Our president, in his own words, in his own book, I read his book when I was in senior one, he says Idi Amin never led him even for a single day. The day Amin became president, he was coming into office. That is the day he started fighting him. So the insurgencies of the 70s, his name is very prominent, he's in bold. And you know what happened in 86? I mean from 80 to 86. He was the commander of those ones who are fighting government. And after all the insurgencies that we've had, he's been the president. Therefore, if you have Konyi the other side, this side you have him and his UPDF. Therefore, all the insecurity, most of the insecurity Uganda has had, he has been a prayer. Look, you go and talk to the children of Kawesa or Sentamu or Chirumira, and you tell them that there is order, there is peace in this country. When they tell you that, Joseph, someone says someone wants to kill me, Kirumira, he reports to police, he's actually killed. The last time they killed a person who was a blogger like this, recently they killed. So if they want to kill you, they will actually kill you. So there is nothing the government can do to stop you from being killed. So I want to point at one point, and they say, our president has excelled in this. Is it the economy? Ugandans are worse off now than they were 40 years ago. Because I have told you I do some work, I'm doing economics. So look at the agrarian question in Uganda. A Ugandan, before Museveni and his liberal policies, didn't survive on the market. At least they would have a well in the village, they had a garden, they would only come to the market to buy sugar. But sugar is not a necessity of life, you can be there. Now these days, even in the villages, they have to go to the market, meaning they have to pick from their pocket to go and buy kaunga, for them to survive. So when you look at in actual terms, you forget the figures they throw in your face. Look at the actual way of life of the people. I'm telling you, when I was growing up, people from the village wouldn't call you to come in Kampala to send them food. Now we send money to the village for the basics. That's why when we had Corona here, they were feeding the entire Uganda. They were not only feeding people in Kampala. So is it the economy? I have in his statement to Mao, he said that Uganda is 55 billion. The economy is going to be $55 billion. He was saying they were collecting $5 billion when they came in. But $5 billion, the actual work it was doing, we can see. We can look at them and we see that this is what all the students used to go to Makerere for free. No one was paying. He would leave Nagongera and go to Bushenyi because education offered in Bushenyi was as good as the one offered in Mwiri. It was as good as the one offered in Koboko, was as good as the one offered in Namagunga. But now all of the children are in Kampala and Wakiso, where they are paying 3 million. So the rest in Nagongera, it is now very rare that you would find someone from Nagongera and ends up at Makerere to do medicine on merit. So I want to look at areas and say, this is what he was able to, this is the thing he has. So it goes to the reason I was telling you all these things. Amidst all the problems of what I had, there is something we would point at and say, that man was able to do A, B, C, D, E. Up to this point, even even these UPC people demonize Amin. But they are
No, we all demonized Amin.
Yeah.
And Amin killed everybody else because he targeted UPC initially, but we all demonized Amin. But any carry on.
but up to this point,
Let's conclude. I want to go to
yes, before you go, but up to this point, there are things you look at and say, Amin is there, Amin is there, Amin is there. 40 years after his demise.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into a very short commercial break. When we come back, I want to begin with Honorable Ochieno, with his UPC, and where they are, where they came from, and how they did things and how they are doing things right now. It's left and right, really, if you look at it. So we'll start from there. Have yourselves enjoy the show. Let's go for a short break.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Hi, Rogers. Can I ask you something?
Shoot.
What does corruption mean?
Well, summarily, corruption is abuse of public power for personal gain or for the benefit of a group to which one owes allegiance. For example, when a public office is abused by an official accepting or soliciting a bribe. By the way, private people can be corrupt too, like bribing police officers to escape fines.
Okay. So exactly how does that concern me?
Well, do you pay taxes?
I guess, yeah. What does that have to do with this?
Everything. Because those taxes you pay are supposed to facilitate services you use, like water, electricity, roads construction, medicines in hospitals, name it.
Okay, that is much bigger than I thought. But it can be stopped, right?
Well, yes, it can, although it may not be as easy as it sounds. And here is the reason why. Corruption roots are grounded in our country's social, political, economic, bureaucratic traditions and policies.
So, what has kept it going this long? I mean, why don't we stop it?
Well, the main reason why it has been here for so long is because institutions are weak, either as a result of poorly defined ethical standards of public service, weak administrative and financial systems, or ineffective watchdog agencies.
What can we do to stop it?
At a national level, we must focus on strengthening the independence and effectiveness of public institutions that fight corruption. At a personal level, we must commit to never giving a bribe.
I promise I'll never give a bribe.
Well, that's a great decision you have made. Me and you now have to spread this message to all our friends. If we all do our part, corruption will be no more.
This message is brought to you by Alternative Digitalk.
Looking for a pair of shoes? Less Up Stores has a wide range of selection for unisex footwear. We have the best quality of all brands at pocket-friendly prices, and we make deliveries countrywide. Just place your order or reach us on 0772 08 0090. You can also check up at Less Up Stores on all our social media platforms. Less Up, craft your own footprints.
Are you craving for that special meal that will entice your taste buds and leave you with lasting, thrilling memories? Look no further. Spice Island Bulenga has got your answer. Natural, fresh and delicious juice, the best meals. Don't miss our daily specials from Monday to Sunday. Pizza Wednesday, Saturday Pizza Bonanza, you buy one and take two. Come dine with us and feel the experience. We are located at Prime Shopping Center in Bulenga, Mitiana Road. For inquiries, call us on 0704111720. Spice Island, we treat your cravings.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.
Welcome back from that short commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. My name again is Rogers Toyabwe, and in studio I'm with Honorable Ochieno Joseph and Batte Baker Lule, a senior journalist and a seasoned one at that. They are giving us insights on the number of issues that have been happening around the country, and of course putting into a historical perspective how things were and how and where we are right today, and what the projection is going to be for the near future. So I wanted, before we went to the break, I wanted to ask you, looking at the traditional political parties, the DP, Democratic Party, and the Uganda People's Congress, you seem to have done so much in the past, which you did, you don't seem. But later on, even now, the energy that is in those two parties is not the same as those that came a little bit later. Did you become complacent later?
No, you're right that we are not the parties that we were then, and I think Pat explained earlier. But before I do that, I think Edgar raised some two important points, which were also like questions to me. One was basically our own track record. Edgar, in the 60s, and again, you're a scholar, I hope you're able to help put these things to bed, and either we come back and have this as a conversation, or you do it a literary work. The events of 1966 is the one thing that people, and I was with a visiting professor who's now a good friend of mine, who left Uganda just the other day, and part of the conversation we talk about UPC's record when it comes to the 60s, and the only thing is 1966. 1966, UPC did not attack Kabaka's palace. The Kabaka was our creation in power. You can say we betrayed our vice president, Nadiope, in 1963 to support Sir Edward as president of Uganda. We worked with KY. Bunyoro thought maybe we're going to betray them, but for us, we're Democrats. We simply say that the referendum of 1964 was something that had been agreed, in Lancaster House, but also something that needed to be resolved, and we believed that the people of the lost counties should freely have the opportunity to do so. The referendum took place, and the outcome did not favor Uganda. These are things we need to come to terms with as Ugandans moving forward, and we need to accept where we lost. In this case, to blame Milton Obote from Lango, who was actually the prime minister, in a matter which was historical that we came and found. Even Ignatius Musazi in 1952 found this dynamics there. Even had Ben Chiwanuka been prime minister, he would have to deal with it because these are resolved things. 1966. Leading to that, I know the conflicts came in. People don't want to talk about the fact that between 1964 and 66, there are assassination attempts against Milton Obote. There are nuances and suggestions. You read his notes on concealment of genocide in Uganda, you realize that the 1965 assassination attempt against Milton Obote, when he went and talked to the Kabaka, it was very clear the Kabaka knew where these things were. So bad blood was not one way. And so by 1966, what happened in Mengo was police officers, the first people to go to Mengo. The government of the day, and certainly not Milton Obote, did not plan that on day number 2, we are going to attack like Museveni would want to say, we are going to Kabamba on day BC, on sort of these guys in Kasese. Police officers went to the palace. It is true the palace had arms. It is also true the palace had asked for arms from Britain, amongst many other things. The matter in the palace escalated. The soldiers went, Idi Amin was sent as a deputy army commander, a senior officer, going to the palace of not only the king, but also the president. So it is not something that you send a sergeant. Even today, if Museveni wants to have a conversation with me over coffee, it's unlikely he's going to send a sergeant to say to me to clear the road for me for us to go and have tea. He will send a senior police officer to me. So that's sort of what happened. The escalation turned bad. I don't know any government that would have acted any differently from what happened in 1996. And I've been battling with this, and it's something that I know something we need to move beyond. I don't know any other person, any other party, any other organization, any other leader, certainly not Museveni, who would have dealt with 1966 in any other way outside the escalation. The only unfortunate thing in the escalation is the fact that people died. But it was not creation of government. The kingdom was directly responsible for what happened in terms of startup. The number of people who died, read Mutesa's own book, The Discretion of Our Kingdom. It's quite clear they're armed. He almost even also has a glee the way they killed one another. Obote has said that's his biggest regret in his life. The fact of the events down there and how things happened. Government did not plan to do 1966. Number 2, going to 1967, we must recognize this, that had 1967 Republican Constitution not taken effect, we would not have Uganda that we have today. We can have a discussion about what other alternative constitutional arrangement we could have had. But I don't think we're going to have the Republic of Uganda unitary as we are today. And these are some of the things that people don't want to talk about. These are open facts. I talk about these things because I'm deliberately, desperately looking for us to move beyond our difficult past to go to a possible future in which all of us are together. But that past should not be a past in which blame, and we blame based on lies, and we blame particular categories. The manner in which Mr. Museveni is only unity, if you're going to kneel for him, is only working together. There are some people who come from other political parties these days, go to NRA, very irritating. They say, oh, we're building the bridge, meaning if people are going to NRA, oh, we are building the bridge. In Museveni's case, conversation like this is not cooperation. You only have a conversation with him when it's on his terms. You're now good. The good UPCs, you talk about the good UPCs and the good DPs, those are people whom he's holding down there. But I'm not saying UPC did not have its own shortcomings. So that is one. Number two, the next other problem with UPC, as you said, 1980. 1980, again, go ahead and do your research and bring it back onto this table. I ask, which parliamentary seat in 1980 did the UPC rig? Which parliamentary seat was DP supposed to win? Which UPC rigged? Which one for NRA UPM did UPC rig? They will not tell you. There's none. There is absolutely none. The only thing, unfortunately, about 1980 came then what DP had deliberately designed to cause havoc, about the announcements of results that we've won, including announcing a result in Gulu, where UPC was eventually won by nearly 90%. Commonwealth observers, these things are on record, read their reports. Mwanga, as vice president, as president, as chairman of the military commission, went sort of overboard by instructing that the electoral commission, because DP was issuing results, and of course, those are the days of no social media. DP was issuing results, and causing a bit of harm. Said that the electoral commission results was going to come from one center, and he was going to clear the results. Nobody can give one iota of a number, a particular parliamentary constituency, because it goes to a parliamentary system, that Mwanga changed this one. So the fault of 1980 could be that Mwanga said that, okay, I will clear the results. That is the only mistake. And I'm fine to have this conversation with political scientists, top professors, and top lawyers for us to see what exactly was it with evidence. We need to have this conversation. Since Norbert Mao has all of a sudden now gone to Gulu and is now a return, and Gulu is now a place which is now very decent and safe, posted the near genocide, as Olara would call it, what happened in 1986, and we now want a new constitution and we want a new possibility of Uganda. Let's have a National Truth and Reconciliation Commission that I, Ochieno, called for, when I returned here in 2005. We need to have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. Let's also go ahead and have a conversation about 1980. After that, 1980 elections, which UPC won convincingly. And I want to tell you, in 1982-83, Milton Obote, tired of this thing, and he's written it on the record, called a meeting of all religious leaders, called a meeting with his brother Paul Semogero. What to start with Semogero, unless, unlike Museveni and Besigye and Chagulanyi, you send them in trucks as if they're carcass for hounds. Had a meeting. Obote said, these allegations is causing us havoc internationally. These allegations is causing sickness because Museveni is using it to slaughter our people in Luwero. Let's put this thing on the table. We settle this thing once and for all. What are the numbers? Obote offered that if you UDP, you have the numbers, put it on the table. And Obote gave this, by this official. Obote said that in the event that DP was able to come for a next round of meeting, with figures enough to show that DP had won 1980 general elections. Obote also saying, you need to prosecute these things legally. Obote said that he was willing, if DP offered to go to court with a particular number of members of seats, parliamentary seats, that showed UPC had not won elections. Obote said they were going to resign. This is official. He was going to resign. He was not going to wait for the court outcome. Meaning, you give way, allow maybe an interim administration until the matter had been resolved. Guys, good enough, Edgar, you're a journalist. These are things we need to put on the national table so that we bring Onyango Bo, Mwenda and Kutu, they were full of Gutus, the old journalists, some of them were doing Nyong for NRA, bring Onapito and all these other people. You guys, let's have this conversation nationally. Let's talk not only just journalists and experts. Bring Museveni. Bring Museveni and these bunches, and we have this conversation once and for all, and we resolve 1980. Because 1980, in a way, in a mess, brought the mess in Luwero in which thousands of our people were slaughtered. Brought the mess in which we had 1985 elections. Brought the mess in which Museveni used to go and, our people in northern Uganda.
Mr. Ochieno, with this energy you had back in the day, what happened after the re-emergence of multipartyism in Uganda?
Which is now your point. No, you're absolutely right. Actually, they're linked. Because of that came 1985 election. 1985. Once the government was overthrown in 1985, which Museveni persuaded DP to use the army to overthrow the government. From 1986, somehow DP, in a very cheeky way, joined Museveni and the Mukelos to overthrow the UPC government. 6 months to elections, 1985. 1986, Semugere thought they were together with Museveni, and the Ukelos were the bad guys, they went. By the time the Semugeres woke up 10 years later, half DP had gone into NRA, and they were eating. So that was the sinking of DP. By 1986, 96, when Semugere was leaving the government, I hosted Semugere in London as head of UPC, head of the opposition at the time. I was reluctant, but he told me that I must, and I organized a big meeting for Semugere in London as he was coming out, and we worked and supported him at the time. But DP had already become now so substantially weakened because who? The Bukenyas, the Kazibwes, the Sibambis, the recent former speaker. All these were big name DPs, and they had joined Museveni, and they're perfectionists for DP. So DP had got himself weakened in that sense, and some of the other leaders were in exile. In UPC's case, you remember we're target from 1985. Our leaders in exile, others died, others killed, others humiliated, party structures sunk on, people imprisoned, and all this kind of stuff. So really, by the time we came out, we're generally quite weak by 2005. Once our president died, of course, we also now lost direction. Times beginning, people struggling, internal struggle for power and direction. Fast forward, we lost quite a few opportunities post-Milton Obote, creating opportunity after Mamire to get a leader who would take us away from the Obotes, even some of these other things, and to give us particular energetic direction in the future. That did not happen. Unfortunately, of course, Museveni came in, kissed a few people in UPC by force, and now over 10 years nearly, we are suffering from that. So as a political party, we are as weak as most other political parties. But based on our foundations and based on our roots and based on our history, as I said, I won't repeat, we are relatively better positioned. We have 10 legislators in the National Assembly. All of them are from Lango. I believe that in the normal elections, even without the without the mess of Jimmy and Peter Walubire alone, the number would go to about 14 from Lango sub-region alone. Once, as Edgar said, the confusion which is there in the party, once we're able to sort out all those, and there is an open, free, and fair competitive elections, even the one which is like 1980, that Museveni goes, even in the 1980 election, we would be in a different position. But I think it's going to take us a bit of time. But the most important thing, we need you guys in the media. We need you guys in the media to push for a particular corner, Edgar, to ensure that the national broadcaster, Uganda Television and Radio, UBC and Urban Television, others, if they're able to come to election times, that's what happens in democracies. And that would happen in the Ugandan democracy, in which I'm president. But that happens at least in Britain, where I was. Come election time, broadcasters give equal time to all leading political candidates. If that happened in major national broadcasting and grassroots media and things like that, NRA would sink and would sink very quickly. I want to say this. The future is the Ugandan opposition need to very urgently, those who are genuine, need to review their own thinking within political parties, and we need to begin working across political parties and to come together and in a manner in which we are having much more focus about Uganda rather than material change.
We're going to move on to another issue. I wanted, because time is running out, but I have a question for Baker. Baker, yes. Nationality asks you, many times state agencies have been torturing, assaulting journalists, but we were shocked last Thursday to see opposition FDC misbehaving. Mr. Batte, what does this display and indicate? What are you as journalists? Let's say?
I was very disturbed by the the scenes at the FDC, but we have to understand them that in perspective. You have to put them in perspective. I had never thought of the idea that I would ever be beaten at the headquarters of a party like the
political
FDC,
party,
a
yes.
political party that is seeking to gain leadership. One time when Mr. Chagulanyi was taking a petition to the United Nations Office of the High Commission, which was closed by this government, this is where we started from. They don't want anyone who
asks questions.
Yeah, they don't want questions. So we were beaten from that place. It is Human Rights Office, and they beat us. So that was, I think, the second time when people in uniform were beating me for simply doing the job. So I had never thought that would happen at the FDC especially. I thought the bad manners is only for NRM, because they have no regard for anybody. They can beat you. They really don't care. So I never thought that would happen to the FDC. So Mr. Nandela Mafabi, who I was told he was the engine behind the first people who beat up people. It is unfortunate that something like that happened, and I think the FDC will never be the same if Nandela Mafabi and Patrick Aburi Atoboy remain as the president. Because you see, even if actually it were to be that whatever the accusation is simple accusation, it is not true. He's talking about Britain. Even in local governments like in Africa, this day, a minister in Ghana resigned simply because the money was stolen from her home. She says it is her genuine money. But she said she cannot keep in the government when she's suspected to be a thief. But here, even when you catch them stealing, that was found on their goat shelter, you get, in their compound is ready-handed, they still insist they don't want to go. We have to push them. So, but in countries where there is distance, even when you have been just suspected, you step down. So how do you then, you have more than half of your party saying, no, you are not the right leader for the party, and you insist on continuing being the president. So because of that constitution, it is going to continue, and instances where the journalist is going to be beaten are going to increase, because now, like today, I was told I didn't go there, but there was supposed to be a meeting at headquarters by some members of NEC. They were refused, and the very first was still there. So why would an opposition party hire people to beat up members? Because the party you are seeking to get in government. This is the problem. And with all Museveni's problems, he excels at one thing. He doesn't give up on people. UPC was a thorn in his foot for a long time. But he kept on poking at them. At different intervals, he would arrest different people in the UPC. He arrested Omar Atuba at one point. He arrested Agriawori. He arrested Jim Akena. So, but there are people who have been inherently in his skin. But in the opposition, every day we are seeking to expel members. You are already looking for people to come to your party. But you are also not doing anything to galvanize the support you are having.
Edgar, can I just say this?
Please.
Briefly? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, because I think that is the big challenge for us in the opposition. We must show cause for people to let off Museveni and come to us. That is extremely important. And particularly to the younger guys who are of the age group of Roger and the challenges that you guys, two of you, are throwing to me, quite rightly, historically, we must show cause where average young 28-year-old Ugandan thankfully the one who just joined UPC today is 28, and a young, beautiful lawyer, must leave NRA and join because, she was born under NRA, she went to school under NRA, and she just thinks all these things are normal. We must show cause. But to make it worse, that then we begin to tell lies, that then we begin to become abusive, that we begin to become violent. And particularly for the young, beautiful Ugandan, the woman, the woman general across the world, women generally don't like violence. I'm not saying we men do, I don't. I've never fought in my life since, years. I am very proud of that. Whenever I meet young youth population, young people, I normally want to tell them that to invoke that violence is a bad thing. But women generally don't like violence, places where there is conflict, generally, and particularly in public spaces. So we give extremely bad press when we show anger and boxing. And in so doing, partly because of part of my job beyond UPC leadership, is also about engaging African youth to get much more involved in politics, to take ownership of this, for their future. In other words, this conversation is about the proportion of people who participate in the voting. Most democracies are now very concerned that people don't turn up to vote, people don't register to vote. I think it's responsible for us to encourage people not only to vote, but to support and to join political parties and engage in the political processes. So in democracies, they are begging people in the big discussion, the section of UK are pushing for lowering the voting age to 16 instead of 18, basically to get people to get much more involved. Here, we are trying to switch off people. So when an incident happened in Uganda House in which there was a near fight, I was away, this is quite a few years ago. I can tell you guys on the record, I felt very sad. Because for me, I'm trying to say, not only do we have this bad press that we have to explain in 1966 and Museveni's Luweero war that has been pushed onto us, but now they're going to say they're going to tell they're violent people. It is really terrible. Same with how eventually Olaro Tundu left Uganda House. I know it's a very polarizing thing, but I just have to use my party. But really, this is the message, that as political leaders, you make an important point. I don't know what is it that we don't want to let go. And I don't know what it is that we want to do it by any means necessary. It's very sad.
Yeah, I want to end with one thing on that particular point. I think we have to raise the bar as the people in the press. We have to raise the bar to the point that there are consequences when you mistreat the journalists. So my friend Abu Luvoa, I saw him in a press conference saying that we should put a ban on the FDC. We shouldn't cover. They must feel that the choices have consequences. And when you choose the consequence of violence, then you will be doing your thing without our scrutiny, especially those things. Because sometimes when someone invites you, there was a guy who writes on media said that news is what people want to hide. The rest is advertisement. So when they invite you for a weekly press conference, they are not giving you news. They want to just put their adverts. So there we don't go. We only do scrutiny because it is an entity that receives public funds. We cannot take away our eyes from them because they are receiving public funds. The government of Uganda pays them 2 billion. More than 2 billion every year.
So it is our money. The people of Uganda.
Yeah, the people of Uganda, yes. Because we give the FDC, cut us off them having members of parliament. So we cannot afford not to scrutinize them. But when they invite us for their public relations stories, please, we shouldn't be doing them. We should be doing them when we are doing scrutiny. So that's when they will realize that when we are there, because you see, it can happen that all members of FDC go to Najanakumbi to find out to deal with Nandala. It can happen. But they will sit at their home knowing that we are there as the journalists. We will bring to them what is happening at the headquarters. But when you are beating the messenger, I think you have lost track. And it is our duty to tell you where your boundaries should be.
Do you think, sorry, if you don't mind, do you think you guys were beaten when knowingly that you're journalists?
Yes. Because outside there were just a few FDC people. And these people were beaten, phones stolen. People whose phones were stolen were clearly labeled. They had jackets that were showing press. Even this young girl who was beaten, she was among the journalists.
Sorry, yes.
And by the way, even if she was a political, even if she was not a journalist,
no
one has a right to beat any Ugandan. Where do you get the right to beat a girl?
Particularly not as an office of
yes, the political party.
That is government.
Yes. A man, you raise a hand on a woman, a young girl like that, even if she were to be FDC, there is no explanation for what happened to her.
And finally, if you don't mind, do you guys have the evidence that it was Ndala pushed, or it was these guys who went out of control?
No, they were not out of control. They were because they were the very people who are refusing the ambassador Biruga from entering. They came from inside the FDC. From the FDC offices. So, and the FDC president was in house. They rocked the building the gate not to allow Birigu and the press to enter. And there were some FDC people who came and knocked on the gate, banged the gate. And not one, not two, like 20 people ran from the FDC headquarters and came and pounced on people. The journalists who are clearly labeled. How are they different from, you remember the incident at CPS where people were served with the porridge and then they picked sticks and came and beat the demonstrators on Kampala Road, the so-called Chiboko squad. So how are those different from those people who beat people on Kampala Road? And that time FDC condemned. So if it condemned, it is bad manners when it is NRM doing it, and it is okay when FDC is doing it.
It cannot be. It certainly can't be. I want us to just, for the last few minutes that are left, I didn't want this issue to also go and address the interviews, because we have someone who's a journalist, and certainly one who is affected by the decisions that are going around. But also you as a person also sees how policies are being done and business around, and there are some issues we need to address. In March, the president hinted on moving adverts solely through the UBC, Uganda Broadcasting Corporation. And I think this very month, July 10th actually particularly, the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Finance also said that directive is going to be upheld. Now, there has been a protest by most of the people under the umbrella of the National Association of Broadcasters, saying that it's not a good thing that the government is taking. And I wanted to get, to begin with you in particular. How do we nurture independent media in a space such as this, where government is picking and choosing what should be done when and where?
One of the things M7 prides in, for us who fraternize with Marxism, because M7 is one of Africa's biggest neoliberals. He is presiding over.
He's actually the head. He's the Nyampala, yes.
Neoliberal economies that have ever existed. He's when the whites snap, he dances to the tune. So, and part of that liberalization he prides in, what it does, it removes government away from the control of the economy and it presses it in the hands of the private sector. But we also know that government is the biggest spender in this country.
Yes.
Because Uganda is still a small economy, most of the business is done with government. It is the biggest employer, it is the biggest so many things. So when government, which is priding in being neoliberal, priding in liberalizing everything, again turns around and says that no, now we want UBC and we want New Vision to be the one handling media, then it is moving against its own policies, which have distinguished Museveni from the rest of the leaders in Africa. So I think, and number two, why would people advertise? Why would a person choose to come to Alternative Digital to advertise there? Because the audience he wants to serve are where? Are on this platform. The audience he wants to serve are reading Monitor. They are reading the Observer. That is the reason why he's advertising in the Monitor, from where I'm standing as a person who has done journalism. So, who watches UBC? Even the government people don't watch it.
Or more accurately, why don't people watch UBC?
Okay, you can phrase it that way. So, and then why would you, because why would you advertise where no one is going to watch your advert? So it becomes, by the way, if government is to insist on that, it should just phase out advertisement completely. Because the reason you want to put adverts on a media station, because you want the people, the information to get to the people. But again, the media where you are pressing, nobody is watching. Nobody is watching. So what is the role of the advert you are putting, you are pressing? So I think the biggest problem is that we have a leader who shouldn't be the leader. Because M7 came here when we were 40 million people. 14 million people. Now we are 45. More than half of the country was born when he is the president. We are talking about alternative media here. It is absolutely digital. People are accessing it through their phones. Our president is still analog. He wants the physical newspaper. He wants the physical television. But the population has left there. There is a great number of people who are actually completely online. They don't read the newspaper, they access their radio, their TV through the digital. Now, but because our president he's still analog, he has no appreciation of the challenges of now. I was surprised, not surprising really, but every single year, like 5-10 years ago, our president was like the 8th longest serving president in Africa. Now he's around 4. Is it 3? The third longest serving president. Now not only in Africa, in the whole world is like 5th. But every generation has got its own challenges, and that's why he can afford to write a letter like that to say, no, I think they should go to New Vision and go to UBC, because he hears these things, but he has no real appreciation of what his son. All the comments, I have never had him being interviewed on our previous, on what we call
the mainstream media.
Mainstream media. He's already social media, because he has accepted. He knows the fact that where the audiences that's why he's taking his the advice is taking him get off social media. You remember one time when he said Twitter, please. So I think for me it is multifaceted. First of all, government is working against its own policies because it prides in being neoliberal. But it is working against the same. Number 2, we have leaders who have no appreciation of the kind of people they are leading. You had him when he was going to UPC, when he was going to campaign for the son of Noyam. He said, and I responded to a quote, a tweet. I was passing, he said the villages he was passing. I didn't see pigs, I didn't see poultry, I didn't see cassava, I didn't see. How are you surviving? He said the same when he went to Soga. I have moved the entire street, I'm not seeing anything. What are you doing? He doesn't know he's the president.
So I'm going to come back and you tell me how you've lived in the last few weeks.
He doesn't know he's the president. He believes, I don't know. Why is he still seated in that? Because you see, the role of a president, I have seen countries where there is failure on the part of the military, or a few people are killed, the minister resigns. He's not the actual person who has done the thing.
Do you know one of the reasons? I've just thought about it. This guy has lived on freebies since 1979. Either on our money or some of the stolen things in Luwero.
So
until today.
He doesn't know.
Out of time.
He is completely out. He doesn't believe that it is the back ends with him. Because the budget is the minister, the de facto minister of finance. So he has no connection whatsoever. And what is most hurting, you hear these things, look at them and keep quiet about them. Don't come and rub them in our face. But, hey, I didn't know you were so poor like that. So if you don't know how Your people have been surviving. So why are you still their leader? Because the leader must understand the problems affecting his people and look towards finding a solution. Perhaps that explains why he has failed to find a solution for the problems bedeviled in this country. Because in the first place, he doesn't know the problem.
But if you don't mind, just very quickly, why do you think he did so?
I don't know.
For the adverts, yes.
For that, because you see, one thing I have heard the explanation. Say UBC, they don't want government to enroll it. They believe that if we pay them adverts, they will be able to run as a profitable organization that can be able to support itself without government necessarily coming in to fund them. The same for New Vision. They believe that if all government adverts pass through it, then they don't have to bother the taxpayer anymore. We don't have to bankroll them. So they can take care of their problems through monies that are provided in the budget. But I want to add one kicker that I had the government spokesperson, Mr. Ofonopono, the other day, saying that the president misunderstood. I mean, there is some missing link somewhere, so they are going to try and harmonize with the president to show him that his options are not really the best options. So, and he said, he promised that perhaps they are going to have a clear way forward.
Some kind of review.
Yes, they review next month.
Yes, that's what he said. So that gives us some reprieve that perhaps
things could change.
But it also shows that the disconnect in our government I've been talking about, that the government entities that are directly responsible are saying one thing, and the man on top is also saying another thing. So there is a total disconnect between the people serving in these offices and the man at the top.
Mr. Ochieno, is it another opportunity for the cartels to make a kill should this directive stick?
Oh, they do so all the time. They do so all the time. The other day, I was privy to a conversation somewhere where an experienced senior NRA official was saying that once a by-election is done, like Oyam, then there are certain categories of people who are swimming in money, from NRA. So you add your numbers. This regime is a mess. Uganda is not a failed state today because Ugandans are resilient people. Uganda is not a failed state today because Uganda is one of the richest countries on this continent. And Uganda is not a failed state today simply because our founding parents, were sensible enough to have given it to God and so therefore called to for God and my country. So in a way, you invoke your usual Jesus and Comrade Muhammad so I think that keeps over going. Otherwise, Museveni's rule, things happen in this country successfully merely by accident. Because as Edgar is saying, there's no planning, there's no direction. It's extraordinary though. I just wonder if possibly one of the reasons is not because the other day he called the monitor funny names. So isn't it the case that maybe Comrade Museveni is thinking that is punishing independent media, was trying to bring them to
that could be true. You remember also actually monitor from I think 94 up to around 2000. The government had suspended the running adverts to kill the monitor, running adverts in the monitor in order to kill it. So that could also be an explanation, yes.
It is almost certainly, definitely one of the reasons why Mr. Museveni is doing it. But it shows, like, as Edgar says, this is an extremely intolerant guy, a guy who doesn't know democracy. And I'm not saying it as Ochieno of today. Ask the people who grew him up, ask the Bienyimis of this world, trace the record. This guy doesn't know dialogue. This guy doesn't know consensus. This guy doesn't know how to have an open, fair competition. If there's a competition about whose phone is better, he will put emotions into them. This guy doesn't know how to lose in an argument, doesn't know how to lose in anything. And as I say, this is a guy possibly who's having some kind of traumatic experiences that he wants to prove a certain point of life with excess money, excess power, extreme, and won't have the last laugh. But no, you can't have the last laugh by playing the Republic of Uganda like Mr. Museveni has done. On this, actually, I would say that it's extraordinary that the alleged Marxist Comrade Museveni opts to push adverts, and Edgar put it very well, push it to the national broadcasters for which people don't have access. On the one hand, you would say, if you're having a logical argument, that would make a lot of sense, that you want to put out adverts because you want to reach out the majority of the people. But does it matter? Don't forget, it does not matter. For Mr. Museveni, whether the adverts reach the people or not. For Mr. Museveni, whether people die in poverty or yam until Ngola's great-grandchildren emerge and return to UPC, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to him. For Mr. Museveni, Karamoja can sink until the grandchildren of street children in Kampala emerge, the Mbabati guys will eat. It does not matter to Museveni how many of his ministers are official thieves, written behind their backs, thieves. So long as they serve his purposes of staying in power, Mr. Museveni doesn't give a hoot. So no, Mr. Museveni giving these things to the main national broadcasters versus the others, is maybe an emotive reaction to something that has happened, or some pineti in one of those places, as you sort of hint. It's basically that. Because at the end of the day, it really does not make a commercial sense that you would do it in that way. But also, on the other hand, I wonder, who really controls Uganda's independent media, you guys? Who controls them? So who controls the Nation Media Group? Who controls the NBSs of this world? Who controls the WBSs and others? Who controls this people? So if these people all control only these things, they should also come together as an association, have a conversation, and also have a response. Perhaps one of the things they could also do. I know they did, but you know what I'm. But here I'm actually pushing beyond them. Ownership in terms of proprietorship. Maybe they should also come to a position to simply say, you do that, we also boycott you. Let them also boycott. I'm also tired of this thing. Once in a while, I beg, only Digitalk invites me successfully. Once in a while, I know some broadcasters who think that they're doing a favor to Ochieno when I'm coming to give them my free knowledge, which Museveni doesn't even have. Talk about that. Mr. Museveni allegedly studied economics and political science. So I don't know what economics Mr. Museveni studied, and not to understand and appreciate that the decision made, in this case, does not make business sense for government, does not make business sense for a population, does not make sense for independent media. And by the way, the independent media, while we question them, these guys employ Ugandans. We need to have them. And actually, if you look at some of the indirect element of the survival kind of stuff, it is huge in terms of how many people and how many livelihoods do exist in this country by virtue of this. Some of these independent media, that's why I was asking, some of the independent media guys, genuine investors, the Pinetis. Some of these people, you can talk about the Nation Media Group, the Aga Khans. So in a way, it's just common sense. This guy does not care because he knows that when his great extended grandchild gets hungry, they're going to go for demand for supplementary budget, and his right guys are going to rush, and then they get the money at the expense of Ugandans. It's a tragedy.
All right. And time is running out. There's another question for him. For years, I've been reading Mr. Batte's extensive stories in Observer paper, especially political conflicts in opposition parties. Where does he see the future of opposition in Uganda, given the new twists of internal fights due to the opponents, NRM's payouts? And you can take that and give us the concluding.
There is a great philosopher who still arrives called Slavoj Žižek. He said that humanity is okay. Humanity is okay, but 99.9% of the people are boring idiots. So sometimes we struggle with to find, but Ugandans, one thing I have known them for is that they are consistent with what they want. That's why the other day they had Semogerere. By the time he died, he would pass there, no one would notice he's the one passing. We had the Sebagala. By the time he died, he would pass in Kampala and nobody turns to see who is walking. We've been having Dr. Vesije. Yeah, he's not the same Vesije of 10 years ago. We have Chagulanyi now. When he's passing on Kampala Road, everyone wants to see who is passing. So, but they don't love them. these all people I've told you about, they don't love them for who they are, but for what they stand for. Because Chagulanyi was here before, we wouldn't care what he's saying. Oh, Besigye was here before, they wouldn't care what he's saying. But when he said, I am the representative, I am the mirror of your problems, I am the one who is standing for what you believe in, they followed him. So Ugandans always know what they want. So today, Nandara and the FDC, for as long as they are poor, for as long as the people realize that you are no longer serving their interest, because the interest of the people is permanent, they will shift their allegiance to another person, and another person will emerge. So political parties, you have not bought, and especially many of our political parties that are coming now, they are not coached in any ideology. That's why you find a person today was, and even many of the members joining these old parties. I have a friend of mine who is DP. He said, Mao took our party to NRM, but me, I'm still DP. Wherever there is a hole, he ticks. But he left me, he didn't take me along with him to State House. Me, I remained. There are others also who still believe in the spirit of the UPC. Even when Akena is there and he's fraternizing with M7, for them they are UPC. Nothing can change their UPC-ness, irrespective of where you have gone as a... Those are not very many who are ideological, that there is what they believe in, there is what they stand for. But that's why in this election, a person was DP in the morning, in the evening was NUP. Because what do they believe in? Nothing. He's just looking for the next vehicle to deliver him wherever he wants to go. So, but the people of Uganda, one thing I know for a fact, there is they don't care about these vehicles, many of them. They care about who is standing for what they believe in, even if he is not of any political party. That's why they tolerated Mbabas up to a point, even when he was one of the most tainted politicians in M7'S government. The following day he had been so, the following day he was poor. And the people who used to demonize him were the one now behind him. So it tells you that...
And people were nearly breaking each other's legs because of that.
Yes. So I want to tell people who are worried about what is happening in the FDC, it is bad for us who want to institutionalize, because you can't run a country. The reason we are having problems with M7 is that he has run this country as an individual. That's why a person in Nagongera, a person in Kayunga, a person in Chanamukaka, who is being chased on 100 by 150 piece of acre, I will say President Tuyambe, because he's killed the entire system, so he's the only one left standing. So that's why a person in Nagongera would say President Tuyambe. And I saw one over there had killed brother, something like that. Very small matter. There is another one who the child had, an old woman, the son had sold the house. And a small piece of land and a small house. And she was saying President Tuyambe, because it is the only office that is still standing. And we are saying, no, that is bad for a country. What about if he collapses and he dies? What will happen to Uganda? So I am one of those who believes in institutions, because at least institutions can outlive the individual. So as a person who is concerned with institutions, I wouldn't want an institution of democracy, an institution that safeguards the interests of Ugandans to break down. But having said that, I think you can never, when you have a fight with your wife, or when there is a fire in your house, even those you hate will come to assist. Even those with buckets, even those with Bensons will come to assist. So now the house of Uganda is still on fire. We might not choose who is to take out the fire, on the nature of the people who are going to take out the fire, or on the equipment to use. So, and the Ugandans understand that. So their effort is now towards that vehicle that can deliver them where they want. Then after that, they can become choosy on the nature of those who are serving them. But for now, I think FDC, if it chooses to take that direction it has taken, of course, the people you didn't buy them, they will migrate where they think their interests are going to be served.
Okay. Thank you so much. And as we conclude, I am very glad that you hinted about institutions. And of course, looking at what it means and what it has looked like when we've had strongmen lead countries and kill institutions. When you look at Libya post Gaddafi, you look at the Compaorés in Burkina Faso, Habyarimana in Rwanda, you see Mobutu in the DRC, you see Sudan, how it looks like right now, and all of these Said Barres in Somalia. Literally, their countries did not survive. The Mubarakas in Egypt, I can mention but a few. What is it that we need to do to prepare for the aftermath of our strongman? And as you conclude with
in part, I refer to the same on to my Sunday column yesterday. I am absolutely in tune with what Edgar is talking about. It was part of my introductory remarks. It is quite clearly the case that the struggling political parties in their respective ways, the leaders of those countries need to do internal review amongst themselves, and where possible ensure that whatever difficulties, if it is personal and personality, seek to resolve them so that they return to the business of building their political organizations or rebuilding them. In principle, as I said, systems and institutions and structures have been killed in this country. And systematically, and as I said when I use Uganda People's Congress, that's why I'm confident that we need to ensure that leaders emerge in political parties and in this country. Across the country, including people who are not in political organizations, you need to emerge yourself as a voice, as an alternative, as a vehicle for some of these conversations across the political divide, so that there emerges a new sense, almost sense of values, where people believe in leadership, organizations, systems, people keep time, order, rule of law, constitutionalism. I hinted at the British Labour Party, and I don't know what conversation I was having on this related matter in a different network. As I was saying to you guys that I was chairman of Uganda People's Congress. Over the time, one of the things I used to do was to get really, really angry, I will say it today, with my not so competent secretary, I'll say it today for the first time, in UK, General Secretary. When I was secretary, I did all these things very well and took notes and minutes. I had these things in which our constitution, basic terms of reference, for UK Bureau merely, would say that, notices for meetings, annual monthly meetings, which used to be held predominantly in my house, first Sunday of the month. You know the date will be first Sunday, next meeting, but that will send notices, and those days would write letters to send notices. And my bureau secretary normally did not. And I can tell you guys, I had in many other times to do the extra thing to do. Why was I trying to do? I was trying to do it because I was trying to make sure that we worked according to the rules of the game. Systems, institutions, structures. In the Labour Party, and this is what I will build in UPC, merely branch meetings, and this is for the purpose of the handle time, merely branch meetings. You know that your branch meetings take place every first Thursday of the month at 7:30 in the evening. If it reaches 8 o'clock, 30 minutes, because it's in the standing orders, if 30 minutes, it hits 30 minutes, and you're not correct, they can never be a party meeting. It can be a business meeting. So if you're correct 8:01, and you are there and you're correct, you will not have a branch meeting, meaning nobody can cheat. Now, those days, there are no social media, nobody's going to try and reveal, oh, by the way, it is inherently built. You know the rules, and you play by the rules. Me as a chair, I know as secretary, I know that should we go ahead with this thing and something happens, there are consequences. That is merely branch meeting. But also, if you're sending out notices, you must send out notices on time. If meetings take place, what's the role of a chairperson? What's the role of a secretary? What's the role of a treasurer? What is the role of secretary for membership? What is the role of secretary for mobilization? These are small things. So you see, it takes you back to my piece yesterday about institutions and systems and organizations. These are cultures NRA killed, but these are cultures we'll have to now sort of rebuild. Do you know what? You take that from there to the constituency, to the local government executive, where I was nominated and I became a delegate to the annual delegates conference of the Labour Party at the time, called Party Conference in 1999. You see the rules. You go to party conferences. You see how meetings do take place. You see how the chair of the meeting is boss. Not Tony Blair, by then an extremely popular prime minister. Forget about the Blair of today, But no, the chair of the conference is chief. The person who's chairing a pub, these are small things. Now, these things happened in this country, and I know earlier, before we started on the program, we had talked about Kakonge, is it Kakonge and Ibingira, and the issue with Milton Obote. And I was telling you off air that, Grace Ibingira was from the right of the Labour.
As you conclude.
Indeed, the right of the party, and Kakonge was on the left of the party, where Obote was. But Ibingira, for whatever else reason happened, Ibingira got the majority votes at the time the Secretary General's position was elected. Ibingira became the Secretary General. Obote's president had no way to turn that round. So we need to learn democracy, and we need to learn that once in a while we'll go with the power of when the majority have spoken, the majority have spoken. But when the majority speak, they lead for all. And those are the cultures that we need to build in political parties and organizations. And also then when it comes nationally, we'll need to have leaders who are tolerant, leaders who recognize that, well, you voted against me the other day, maybe it's at a party level, but you are competent enough. Edgar, you're going to be head of my communications. Not because you voted against me, you voted in favor of Roger. Things as basic as that. Forming cabinet or forming governments. Same thing, you realize that in UPC government, we govern, in the 60s, we knew that we were not going to have a majority in Buganda. But which part of Buganda will complain that UPC marginalized them in the 60s? Which part of Buganda will UPC complain that we marginalized them in the 80s, notwithstanding the terror that Museveni and his friends were subjecting the people of Luwero and the sense of insecurity? That is the kind of thing that we need for political parties. But as I said, as a cultural things change. The sooner younger Ugandans emerged and took on these jobs, the sooner they started having conversations with Edgar, the sooner you and I are able to have seminars and workshops on leadership and disciplines and constitutional bailies, and the sooner then we're able to go ahead and challenge other leaders, including ourselves, then the better for this country going forward.
Thank you so much, sir. And Mr. Baker Batte, I think it's Mr. Batte.
Yes.
Baker Lule.
Yes,
That should be the order, yes. And
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Ochieno Joseph, thank you so much, both of you, for sparing your time and sharing yourselves with us. We appreciate that information because every one of your opinions has been informed by a wealth of experience here and there. So we thank you so much for making the time. And everyone else who has been on the other side, thank you so much for being there, because we do this so that we can also learn together. So I hope that you'll move this video, share it with your fellows. Let us learn together and transform the society together. For the people who have aided in all of this, the gentleman on camera and the other people in the control room, thank you so much. May God bless you. Have yourselves a very good night.
The Alternative Digitalk. Real issues, real talk.